Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Carry On Cabby from 1963, directed by Gerald Thomas, and of course the seventh film in the Carry On series. So yes, we are back once again, ready to discuss another Carry On film. Once again, going through a film, the set behind me, although this was a few weeks ago now that I watched this one, and doing these reviews out of order, but yes, we are back to discuss another Carry On film, and of course, a spoiler warning, we'll say that first. If you haven't seen this film, I simply recommend seeing it and then come back to this discussion, and we can go from there and discuss this series. Recently I started on the channel reviewing the Carry On films, and yes, obviously a reminder, we're going through all of these films on the channel. They're set behind me, of course, and watching some of them on Blu-ray, but mainly going through the set behind me, and just having a great time seeing from the set or elsewhere, around 10 films actually now, almost of this series. Recently in the last month or so. So it's been some ride already, and I was starting with Carry On Screaming, seeing that again. Saw that many times, in a review will be coming for that one. But yes, this will be a fairly brief video here for this one, because I have to get through these reviews obviously, and really, some of these ones, at least first time watch, I can't say too much about them. But yeah, certainly one once again that I enjoyed, and I'd be very interested to hear, your thoughts on this one as well. So yes, a very interesting film. Had never seen it. This is the first film with Jim Dale, in the Carry On series. So that was interesting for me because he's one of my absolute favourites. Probably him and Kenneth Williams are my two favourite Carry On kind of cast members actually, and I'd have Sid James and Hattie Jacques and Charles Hawtrey, in the top 5 or 6, definitely. Those are my absolute favourites. But yes, Kenneth Williams and Jim Dale. But because Kenneth Williams is the first one he did not appear in, but Jim Dale is his first film in the series. So very interesting. But yes, a weird film in this one. I must say I did enjoy it, but it's a very very strange one with the tone. I just found myself, at times it was quite, random. I think very well set up, I must say. Very kind of investing setup. And some really really hilarious slapstick early on in the first act. So I was thinking this is going to be one that I do quite respond to quite well. But it did soon after the first act kind of go off the rails a bit, and it just nothing too kind of bad or anything. Just it was kind of meandering, and I was kind of losing focus on the motivations of the characters, for whatever reason, and as well, it just wasn't quite as engaging, after that first kind of 35-40 minutes, and 35 minutes, and I think it was a very good setup, or very well done setup, but I think it did lose its way, and it just became a bit meandering, and I think a bit confusing for me personally. For whatever reason, I think the tone threw me off, and just some of the points of dialogue, just a bit confusing for me, and the actual motivations of the characters was just a bit muddled as well. Obviously Charlie, played by Sid James, is the main character. Obviously Peggy, they're kind of a couple, and I really liked the first act with them, and it kind of sets it up well, although quite dark at times. It's much more of a drama with their relationship, and it's got loads of comedy around this, but the main plot is obviously Peggy obviously leads this this all-female crew, and they essentially try to compete with the men, trying to compete with the fares and all this, and it's kind of a threat to the actual original taxi company, obviously led by Sid James. So obviously it kind of leads to a lot of kind of feuding and all this, and kind of this really the men versus women kind of companies throughout, and then in the end kind of it fizzles out, and it's a very strange ending, but that is the main plot. These two kind of firms, if you will, cab firms, kind of competing for fares and for business really, and around that you have different things, comedy, obviously, and different subplots there as well going on. Jim Dale, I found it quite hilarious. His intro, to this film, and just his character running along, and obviously he says, my wife is going to labour, and as we know, just constantly going back and forth. I think it got a bit too much. Really, there was a point where I thought, actually, that's a great punchline where it kind of finally is going to happen, and then it just kept going back and forth, driving him around for around 10 minutes it seemed like of the film, and I think just a bit drawn out there, and it kind of lost the actual comedic effect for me. But nevertheless, it is at its best, I think, when Jim Dale, Charles Hawtrey, and these characters are kind of on screen together, and we have a charm, particular charm to the first act, as I say, and just the setup, and Charles Hawtrey, he kind of when he drives into the cab firm, obviously looking for a job. That's one of my favourite moments, actually, and him, as we know, the kind of him dropping all the stuff as well. The drinks. At one point, in the kind of the cafe there, that is one of my favourite moments. Just a kind of simple, really effective piece of slapstick there, and I really enjoyed Hattie Jacques in this film. Definitely, at times it's not the most enjoyable, of relationships to kind of watch. Her and Peggy and Charlie, obviously, kind of it gets a bit too maybe, it just lacks charm at times, I feel, but it is definitely enjoyable enough, and overall it's a charming enough film, but it isn't, again, one of my favourites. It's just a bit, as well, dingy in the way it's kind of shot. Obviously, we have London and all this. Just a particularly even more so kind of dingy and somber kind of capturing of London and stuff. It's not the most pleasant of places. But yes, obviously we have the final act where things are kind of wrapping up, and I think thinking of that as well, it's just a bit, kind of throwaway. I liked seeing certain things culminate, threads and all this, but in the end, it's just it's a bit random, and the final moments when Charles Hawtrey is going off there, that is just insane. But of course, the last line is "Call me a cab," which is quite interesting because that is obviously the original title of the film was meant to be, and obviously it was named afterwards. Carry on, Cabby, obviously, but yes, "Call me a cab" is the last line. Sid James, his character, is the one that says this. So that's quite funny. It's quite a novelty, kind of moment, ending, and I did enjoy, the final. I enjoyed all this film in that sense, but just compared to different carry-on films, it's not my favourite, and I think a bit underwhelming at times, a little bit flat here and there. But what it has got going for it is the performances and certain character interactions in this film. Some quite hilarious moments at first, and I really liked the setup to this film. It's just in the middle and in the final act it starts to go off and kind of never quite regain the investment that I had of that first act. Just seeing the characters, how they're introduced, all the kind of the setup to these relationships and all this, and Hattie Jacques, a real standout of this film. Obviously, Jim Dale as well, and Charles Hawtrey in particular. Those ones, really really funny, and Sid James as well. Is really really good in this film, and obviously him being the kind of lead of the film, really, obviously, and especially of obviously the main cab firm. That's really good to see, and just not one of my favourites. The tone is definitely, it's not as charming as most of the carry-on films I've seen. Even Don't Lose Your Head. There's something about that one that I did definitely prefer to this. There is more of a charm, more of a silly kind of just a feel-good kind of feeling vibe to the film. Whereas this one is a bit more somber, and it's more investing in some areas than that film, for example. But just overall, it's the carry-on feel, and just the kind of the ingredients are not quite all here in this film. Still an okay film, an enjoyable one, just not one of my favourites, and just at times, as I say, a bit muddled, a bit kind of cluttered, and a bit random. And was I really fully invested throughout? Not quite, obviously as well. Was I fully aware of the motivations of the characters? Just fully getting the kind of the precise, kind of particulars of where this is going to go. The characters, did it all kind of come together? Not quite, certainly not, and it was a bit throwaway in the ending. But definitely an enjoyable film. Some, as I say, some real highlights, including some moments with Charles Hawtrey early on, and just the entire kind of setup, and kind of moments with Sid James obviously as well. Kind of talking to his different obviously employees and stuff, and just going about his business there. Really enjoyed moments in the first act especially, and this is obviously well shot and edited, although again not quite the kind of Carry On standard in that regard, but yeah, a fine film, an okay film. I enjoyed this. I'd recommend it, of course, but it's more of an average work personally for me, and than kind of a classic Carry On, for example, or a good or very good film. It's just my opinion. But yes, my final rating for this film is a 61%. A fair score from me, and the similar score that I gave another film that I reviewed recently of the Carry On series. But yes, certainly once again enjoyed this film. It was charming in places. It was enjoyable enough, funny enough, but just not one of my favourites. And it was lacking. It was just lacking something at times, investment and a charm. Just the Carry On charm. It just wasn't quite there personally for me. But enjoyable enough, as I say. Some real standout performances here. Obviously, very significant, being the first Jim Dale, Carry On film, and just for me, he's one of the absolute best in the series. Wasn't in too many compared to obviously for example Sid James, and certainly Kenneth Williams. But regardless, of that, I feel Jim Dale is one of the best for me. So it was great to see him in this film as his first performance in the series, and obviously some really funny moments with him as well. Especially at first with him running down and just really really hilarious moments there. And yes, it was a charming film. An enjoyable film and quite funny overall. Certainly the first act was very funny. But yes, that's my thoughts. Enjoyed this one obviously as well. So it would be great to hear your thoughts on this film. And as always, when we go through these, just any Carry On talk would be great. You can talk about any films, obviously not giving spoilers potentially in the comments of different films. But yeah, talk about your experiences with this series, some of your favourites perhaps. We'll be getting to them eventually. Once again, we'll be reviewing Carry On Camping, actually, because I did review that 4 years ago now, but actually the rating has massively increased, and as well, just more things to say about that one, and I want to kind of log my thoughts going through this kind of recent kind of exploration of the series. So that will be reviewed again, and certainly I've got some of my favourites, Doctor and Screaming as well to review. So yes, every single Carry On film will be reviewed eventually. So some will be shorter like this one. Some will be a bit longer, like for example Doctor and Screaming as well. So yes, that's it for now. That's my thoughts on Carry On Cabby, or originally Call Me a Cab, of course. And yes, a very interesting film, and obviously one of the early ones, and fascinating to see kind of the first Jim Dale as well as the first absence of Kenneth Williams. But yes, an enjoyable film, one that I recommend, and it was nice to once again see this film. Obviously a Carry On film. You can't really go wrong in this, at least this phase. I've not seen some of the later ones. Not looking forward to that. For example, Columbus, Emmanuel. It will be likely that I won't like those films, but yeah, we'll review them all eventually on the channel. So yes, that's it for now. Tell me your thoughts, and yes, let's talk about cinema as always. So yes, as always, take care, and thanks for watching.